Welcome to our show, Hong Kong Brief. Today, we have an exciting lineup of news stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. First up, China's defense minister has accused the U.S. of stirring trouble in the Asia-Pacific region with its support for Taiwan and the Philippines. In a bold statement, the minister warned against any country creating chaos in the area. Stay tuned as we delve into the details of this geopolitical drama. Next, we turn our attention to a fascinating Instagram project that uses AI to recreate the infamous Kowloon walled city. Art director Bianca Tse Waishan's digital creations offer a fresh perspective on the historical site, moving beyond its notorious reputation. We'll explore how her work is challenging stereotypes and bringing the city's vibrant past to life. Finally, we head to the sports arena, where Canada's men's rugby sevens team is facing a potential relegation from the elite HSBC SV&S circuit after a series of tough losses. We'll discuss the challenges the team is up against and what's at stake in their upcoming matches. Please stay tuned for the detailed coverage of these stories. Associated Press: Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun recently accused the United States of causing friction in the Asia-Pacific region due to its support for Taiwan and the Philippines. Speaking at the Shangri-La Defense Forum in Singapore, Dong emphasized that China would not tolerate any geopolitical conflicts or wars in the region. He highlighted China's strategic culture of universal love and non-aggression, but warned that there is a limit to China's restraint. The Philippines, under President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., has strengthened its security alliances with the U.S. and other countries, which Dong claimed has emboldened the Philippines to provoke China. Despite ongoing tensions, Dong expressed openness to military exchanges with the U.S., provided both sides make efforts. He also reiterated China's stance on Taiwan, vowing to take resolute actions against any moves towards Taiwanese independence. South China Morning Post: Hong Kong police are investigating the death of a 67-year-old motorist who crashed into the Yau Ma Tei fire station. The incident occurred around 11:30 p.m. on Waterloo Road when the man lost control of his vehicle and struck the building. He was rushed to Kwang Wah Hospital with severe leg injuries but was pronounced dead an hour later. The Special Investigation Team of Kowloon West is leading the case and has called for witnesses to come forward. Provisional data indicates that Hong Kong experienced 5,277 traffic accidents resulting in injuries in the first 4 months of this year, with 33 fatalities. Last year, the city recorded 17,189 injury-causing traffic accidents, a 14% increase from 2022, with related deaths rising by 6% during the same period. Nikkei Asia: the global contemporary art market is experiencing rapid growth, driven by young Asian artists and collectors. Annual auction sales for contemporary art have increased 25 times in value over the past 20 years. A notable example is a satirical painting by Chinese artist Fang Lijun, initially bought for 14 million yen in 1996 and now valued at around 1.1 billion yen. The shift in collector focus from traditional Western values to a more diverse range of artists has boosted the popularity of contemporary Asian art. Auction houses like Sotheby's are expanding their presence in Asia to meet the growing demand. China has become a significant player, accounting for 32% of global auction sales. Despite the potential risks and challenges in the contemporary art market, such as economic slowdowns and the need for proper storage, experts highlight the non-monetary value of art in enriching lives and reflecting societal concerns. South China Morning Post: Brock Pierce, co-founder of the stablecoin Tether, hinted at a possible return to Hong Kong as the city attempts to lure back the cryptocurrency industry. Pierce, who also chairs the Bitcoin Foundation, expressed enthusiasm about Hong Kong's regulatory environment and its potential to become a significant player in the crypto market, especially in trade finance. He believes that China will eventually open up to cryptocurrencies, making Hong Kong an attractive gateway. While Pierce remained tight-lipped about his specific plans, he highlighted Hong Kong's strategic position relative to other regional hubs like Singapore and Japan. Pierce's history in Hong Kong, including ventures like Internet Gaming Entertainment and ZAM, underscores his connection to the city. Despite regulatory hurdles, Pierce is optimistic about Hong Kong's future in the crypto space, emphasizing the need for leadership and strategic planning to capitalize on the city's advantages. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong's tourism strategy needs a significant overhaul to adapt to changing global travel patterns and evolving consumer demands. Historically reliant on opportunistic promotion and mainland Chinese tourists, the city must now develop a consolidated strategy to attract high-spending, experience-seeking travelers. President Xi Jinping's visit to France and the Franco-Chinese Year of Cultural Tourism highlight the importance of cultural connections in tourism. Hong Kong should benchmark itself against leading global cities and integrate various traveler segments into holistic annual plans. The city's top-class facilities, such as the soon-to-be-opened Kai Tak Sports Park, and its unique cultural experiences should be leveraged to create a distinct and appealing tourist destination. Community support and the use of digital marketing channels are crucial for redefining Hong Kong's tourism narrative. Recent international engagements, like the U.S.-China Tourism Leadership Summit and delegations led by Hong Kong officials, underscore the city's potential to re-establish itself as a global tourism hub. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong police have issued a warning about a surge in counterfeit banknotes circulating in the city, with a significant increase in fake currency detected from January to April this year. The police seized 3,396 fake notes worth 2.55 million Hong Kong dollars, a stark rise from the previous year's figures. 3 cases involving cryptocurrency transactions were notable contributors, with the police confiscating large quantities of training notes and low-quality fakes. The counterfeiters often targeted convenience stores and taxi drivers, using poor lighting conditions to their advantage. Despite the rise in fake notes, the overall impact remains minimal compared to the total volume of genuine currency in circulation. The police emphasized the importance of checking security features on banknotes and advised the public to report any counterfeit currency immediately. Recent scams involving fake cryptocurrency shops in Tsim Sha Tsui have also highlighted the need for vigilance, as fraudsters continue to exploit digital currency transactions to deceive victims. Guardian. The verdict wasn't surprising, but outside room number 2 of the West Kowloon courthouse, people still wept. The panel of Hong Kong national security judges had set down 2 days for the hearing but dispensed with the core business in about 15 minutes. In the city's largest ever national security trial, involving the prosecution of pro-democracy campaigners and activists from a group known as the Hong Kong 47, almost all the defendants were found guilty of conspiracy to commit subversion. Their crime was trying to win an election, holding unofficial primaries in 2020 attended by an estimated 600,000 residents. The plan was devised by organizer and academic Benny Tai, who had previously been jailed over his involvement in the 2014 Umbrella Movement, and whom Beijing has labeled a vicious traitor. Tai's plan began with primaries to select the best candidates to win a legislative majority. They would then block government budgets to potentially force a dissolution and the resignation of the chief executive, Carrie Lam, in an effort to have the government answer the movement's demands. Last Thursday, the court found this plan would lead to a constitutional crisis and therefore threaten national security. The convicted included 1 organizer, Hong Kong Australian dual national Gordon Ng, and 13 candidates, almost all former politicians. 2 other candidates were acquitted but remain under bail while the government prepares an appeal. Those 16 were the only ones to plead not guilty from the group of 47 charged in early 2021 after mass dawn raids by national security police. The other 31 accused, including 4 who would testify for the prosecution, had already pleaded guilty, but the court delayed sentencing until the trial of the 16 was done. The 45 campaigners currently convicted face sentences of up to life in prison. South China Morning Post. A city of darkness, an anarchic enclave, a settlement rampant with drug dens, gambling parlors, and brothels, these were common descriptions of Kowloon walled city in Hong Kong. Once considered the most densely populated place in the world, its tightly packed buildings were constructed on the former site of an Imperial Chinese military fort, which refugees from the Chinese Civil War adopted as a place to live following World War II. Before long, it grew into a miniature city, full of activity, some of it criminal. Among its residents were unlicensed dentists, metalworkers, food stall operators, and missionaries. The Chinese government and British colonial administration in Hong Kong announced in 1987 that Kowloon walled city would be demolished, and after the eviction of its residents, including a few holdouts who were forcibly removed, demolition began in 1993. Today its buildings and history live on not just in books, the archives of newspapers including The Post, and graphic recreations but in pop culture, having served as the source of inspiration for video games such as Stray and, most recently, the widely acclaimed martial arts film Twilight of the Warriors, Walden. Kowloon walled city has always intrigued art director and digital creator Bianca Tsai Weishan, which is why she launched an Instagram account called @wildest_dreams filled with imaginative, AI-generated images that bring the enclave back to life. Tsai never got to visit Kowloon walled city, it was demolished when she was 12, she became acquainted with it after playing the Japanese adventure video game Kowloon's Gate, whose setting is inspired by it. It was the first video game I had ever touched or played, and the whole world in the game really amused me, she says. It reminded her of her childhood in temporary housing in Fanling, in Hong Kong's New Territories. It's relevant to my childhood, because I'm from a family with nothing, she says. I lived in a slum, and I had no toys. I remember on Chinese New Year, I was sitting on the floor with my mom and selling toys when everyone was visiting their families. I was selling used metal to the shops for 10 Hong Kong dollars. It was at this time that her interest in art began, since drawing was the cheapest way to entertain herself. I'd watch cartoons and draw, and I'd go to the library every day, read all the illustration books, and then I just kept drawing. South China Morning Post. China has landed on the moon's far side for a second time, and will soon start collecting rock samples from the oldest lunar basin to bring back to Earth. The Chang'e 6 lander successfully touched down in the northeastern part of the South Pole Aitken Basin at 6:23 a.m. Beijing time on Sunday, the China National Space Administration, CNSA, announced. At 6:23 a.m. on June 2, with the support of Keiqiao-2 relay satellite, the Chang'e 6 lander and ascender successfully landed in the pre-selected landing area in the South Pole Aitken Basin on the far side of the Moon, the CNSA said. The mission has made technological breakthroughs, including lunar retrograde orbit design and control technology. With the support of Keiqiao-2, it will go on to complete key tasks such as the intelligent, rapid sampling from the lunar far side and lunar surface takeoff. The payloads on board the Chang'e 6 lander will work as planned and carry out scientific exploration. The international instruments, including the negative ions at the lunar surface developed by the European Space Agency and the detection of outgassing radon from France, will switch on very soon. The Italian passive laser retroreflector has also been deployed. The lander will soon go through initial checks and begin using its robotic arm to drill and scoop up materials from the lunar surface, which are expected to weigh up to 2 kilograms, 4.4 pounds. If returned, they will become the first samples ever retrieved from the Moon's mysterious far side, which always faces away from the Earth. My colleagues and I are very excited. I hope the mission will be a complete success and make history, Yang Wei, a geochemist from the Institute of Geology and Geophysics in Beijing who has studied the Chang'e 5 moon samples, told the South China Morning Post. When we finally get to analyze those samples in the lab, they will greatly advance our understanding of the moon's history. Chang'e 6, which is named after the Chinese moon goddess, blasted off from the Wenchang spaceport on the southern island province of Hainan on May 3. Despite the rainy conditions, more than 100,000 people gathered on nearby beaches to watch the launch, according to state broadcaster CCTV. Entering lunar orbit 4 days later, the 8.35-ton spacecraft, which consists of a lander, ascender, orbiter, and return capsule, had been circling the moon since then, looking for the best spot and time to land. On May 30, the lander and ascender separated from the orbiter and return capsule. At 6:09 a.m. on Sunday, the lander fired its 7,500 Newton thrust engine to slow down and began to descend from about 15 kilometers, 9 miles, above the lunar surface. In this process, the cameras on the lander snapped pictures of the landing area and transmitted them to computers on the lander to identify possible hazards on the surface, such as large rocks, so that the craft could maneuver to avoid them. At about 100 meters, 328 feet, above the lunar surface, the combination suspended its descent and hovered for a moment to conduct accurate detection of smaller obstacles and determine the final landing spot before continuing to descend at a slower, steady speed. As the craft came to just several meters above the surface, it shut off its engine and touched down on the lunar surface, becoming the only country to have soft landed on the far side for a second time. The landing process was supported by Keiqiao-2, a communication satellite orbiting the moon that relays signals between the spacecraft and mission control. Once the lander completes its 2-day surface operations, the relay station will play a critical role in helping the ascender to blast off from the top of the lander, dock with the orbiter and transfer its cargo to the return capsule. SCMP opinion: Hong Kong football is at a crossroads as it faces a season-ending crisis. The Independent Commission Against Corruption has uncovered a new match-fixing scandal involving 12 players and coaches from 3 teams, including one Premier League club, reminiscent of similar arrests last year. Corruption has long plagued the sport, tarnishing its reputation. The resignation of respected head coach Jorn Anderson, following the departure of the Hong Kong Football Association's CEO Joaquin Tam Chowlong, adds to the turmoil. Anderson, who led the team to significant achievements like reaching the Asian Games semi-final and qualifying for the AFC Asian Cup finals for the first time since 1968, criticizes the lack of opportunities for young talent and has suggested reforms. The Premier League suffers from a lack of fans and sponsors, and there is a call for an independent body to manage it, akin to models in England and Japan. The sport needs strong leadership, innovative ideas, and better promotion to rejuvenate and meet the expectations of the city's fans. South China Morning Post: Hong Kong is positioning itself for a financial comeback by embracing cryptocurrency, aiming to restore its status as Asia's financial center. The city has taken significant steps, including launching Asia's first digital asset ETFs that invest in Bitcoin and Ether, signaling a shift from niche to mainstream acceptance of cryptocurrency. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's preliminary approval for Ether ETFs underscores this growing regulatory acceptance. Hong Kong's proactive approach, such as potentially allowing yield-earning options like Ether ETF staking, could attract fintech activity and talent. The Securities and Futures Commission's decision to allow tokenization of securities has already drawn substantial investment, and major cryptocurrency conferences are bringing foreign investment into local startups. This regulated yet innovative environment could attract more startups and established companies, addressing talent shortages and boosting economic growth. Hong Kong's strategic initiatives and progressive regulatory stance position it as a leader in the evolving finance industry, poised to attract global institutions and professionals. South China Morning Post: Fans of Tsui Hark's classic martial arts films from the 1990s, such as the Once Upon a Time in China series, were ecstatic when he released Detective Dee and the Mystery of the Phantom Flame in 2010. This film marked a triumphant return for Tsui after a lean period in the early 2000s, showcasing his signature blend of wuxia and kung fu elements. The movie, set in the 7th century, featured D. Ringia, an imperial commissioner with Sherlock Holmes-like sleuthing abilities, investigating mysterious deaths by spontaneous combustion. The historical D. Ringia, however, was a judge and politician, not a detective or martial artist. Sui's imaginative portrayal of D was influenced by the 1890 Chinese novel Wu Zetian's Four Great Cases and its English translation by Robert Van Gulik, who also wrote a series of detective novels featuring Judge D. The film's success led to 2 prequels, maintaining the series' unique flavor and providing top-notch entertainment. Sui's depiction of D as a martial artist was justified by the need for an imperial bodyguard to be skilled in combat, adding a layer of realism to the fantastical narrative. The film's intricate plot and stunning action sequences, choreographed by Sammo Hung, combined wirework and special effects to create fluid and graceful martial arts scenes, reminiscent of Sui's earlier works. Australian Broadcasting Corporation. Colin Wyatt, a former ski champion, turned to stealing rare butterflies from Australian museums to cope with his crumbling marriage in the late 1940s. The bizarre theft spanned multiple museums and involved thousands of rare butterflies, with Wyatt targeting only the best specimens. The Melbourne Museum first noticed the theft of 825 specimens from the George Lyell collection, prompting other museums to check their collections, revealing significant losses in Adelaide and Sydney as well. Wyatt, who had a deep knowledge of butterflies, managed to access private rooms and steal the specimens during a series of visits. His actions were discovered when Australian police sought help from Scotland Yard, leading to Wyatt's home in Farnham, Surrey. Despite his earlier suspicious activities during his time in the Royal Australian Air Force, Wyatt was not extradited but fined £100. His rearrangement and reclassification of labels on the specimens caused significant confusion among entomologists, taking years to resolve. Wyatt continued collecting butterflies until his death in a plane crash over Guatemala in 1975, leaving behind a collection of over 90,000 specimens. SCMP opinion. The pandemic has cemented the practice of working from home, with many employees now demanding it as a permanent option. A recent survey showed that 51% of Hong Kong respondents would quit if required to spend more time in the office, highlighting the shift in workplace expectations. Initially, adapting to remote work was challenging, but employees soon appreciated the flexibility and the elimination of daily commutes. Despite concerns, productivity did not necessarily decline, and some speculated that offices might become obsolete. While a partial return to the office has occurred, companies recognize the need for a balance, as flexible working arrangements are crucial for recruiting and retaining talent. Singapore, for example, will soon require employers to provide a formal process for requesting more work-from-home days, staggered hours, or even 4-day weeks to address a tight labor market and aging workforce. In contrast, Hong Kong enterprises have been cautious, fearing higher costs and lower productivity. The government has encouraged flexible working arrangements and additional leave to improve work-life balance, a priority for young job seekers. As Hong Kong recovers from the pandemic, it must continue to adapt to market trends and employee expectations to boost the economy and attract talent. CBC, Canada's men's rugby sevens team is teetering on the brink of relegation from the elite HSBC SV circuit after a string of disappointing performances in Madrid. Following losses to Uruguay and Germany on Friday, the team was narrowly defeated 14-7 by the US on Saturday, landing them at the bottom of qualifier Pool A. This sets up a high-stakes showdown against the Pool B winner on Sunday, with their spot in the top-tier series hanging in the balance. The Canadian men, who have been a core team since 2012-13, now face the grim prospect of dropping to the second-tier Challenger Series if they lose. Meanwhile, the Canadian women's team, ranked 5th, pulled off a stunning upset by defeating number 1 New Zealand 26-17, marking their first victory over the Black Ferns 7 squad in 27 attempts. The women are eyeing a trophy in the championship bracket, buoyed by tries from Charity Williams, Olivia Apps, Piper Logan, and Kiara Wardley. The men's team, however, has struggled throughout the season, enduring a 28-match losing streak and finishing last in 6 of the 7 events prior to Madrid. Their relegation battle is compounded by a reduction in the number of men's teams on the circuit from 16 to 12, aligning with the women's competition and the Olympic field. As the Canadian men prepare for a last-ditch Olympic qualification tournament in Monaco in late June, their immediate focus remains on Sunday's crucial match, which will determine their fate in the Elite Rugby Sevens series. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.